All right, everybody. Good afternoon. Javier, you are indeed in first. If you're joining this live stream right now, wherever you are, LinkedIn or YouTube or Twitch, say hi, just like Javier did. Say hi. Let me know that you're here. Let me know that you're out there. Let me know where you are. Where in the world are you? And also let me know what you do. Introduce yourself just a little bit. Javier is a friend of mine. He's an architect. He's in New Jersey. So I know that. He's the first in. I appreciate him calling first there. Shotgun, as it were. I have been hosting these LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch live conversations every weekday at 2 p.m. Eastern for almost 2 weeks now. The reason that I decided to start doing this is that every weekday afternoon at 4 p.m. Eastern, I host a show called Context and Clarity Live. 4 days a week, it's inside the EntreArchitect Community Facebook group. 1 day a week, Thursdays, it's live and simulcast at 4 p.m. Eastern inside that Facebook group, also to LinkedIn, also to YouTube, and also to Twitch. On Thursdays, I have a co-host, Catherine McPhail. And Catherine and I host a conversation with a special guest as well as the live audience. A little bit of background. We use that special guest and the theme, the topic that special guest will talk about to set a theme for the week. And last week, as I was preparing for the week, I realized, you know what, these topics that we're talking about are not just topics for architects. You might have guessed, if it's inside the EntreArchitect Community Facebook group, we're probably talking to an audience of architects. Yeah, pretty much. But these topics that we talk about, last week it was emotional intelligence. The week before that, it was culture. The week before that, it was your value mindset. This week, we're talking about communicating, being human in a technology-driven world. Last week, I had an epiphany, I guess. And I said, you know what? We're talking about emotional intelligence. This isn't just for architects, it's for all of us. I know that my network, whether you're joining through LinkedIn, if you're joining through LinkedIn, you already know who I am. If you're on YouTube, you may not. If you're on Twitch, you probably don't. But I know that my network is really a lot of professional services people. So certainly architects, but also engineers, real estate agents, construction pros, creative and design pros, doctors, attorneys, marketing, advertising people. All of you that make up my network, you're all affected by these topics that we're talking about: emotional intelligence, culture, trying to speak human in a technology-driven world. They're all applicable far outside the walls of architecture. So why not extend these conversations to the greater audience, to the greater network, to the world, and just see where they gain traction, to see where the conversations go. So that's what I've been attempting to do over the last couple of weeks. Scott Thrift, welcome back from San Francisco. Hi, Scott. Glad that you're with me. Who am I? Who's this guy? Who's this guy that's talking on the screen right now? My name is Jeff Eccles. I'm the president and the chief strategy officer for Echo Engagement. I'm also the director of brand strategy for EntreArchitect. Like I said, Context and Clarity is a live stream that happens every weekday afternoon, mainly for architects. Thursdays, it's wide open. It's simulcast to all the places, right? I just described that. It's a podcast that comes out every morning that you can consume wherever it is you consume podcasts. It's a coffee talk on Clubhouse, 9 a.m. Eastern, every weekday. It's a conversation about the things that matter most to your success. That's really what Context and Clarity is all about. Like I said, we've been talking over the past several weeks that about your value mindset, culture, emotional intelligence, and this week, being human in the face of a technology-driven world. Our special guest today, and this is sort of the warm-up for that conversation, our special guest today, and the guest that has really caused us to set this theme for this week is Brian Kramer. I know all of my marketing and advertising friends out there know who Brian Kramer is. Brian Kramer is a best-selling author. He's a TED speaker. He's a visionary. He really founded the human to human, H2H movement. And even though, in a way, human to human was born sort of by accident. He was doing a TED talk. He convinced the TED organizers, to let people have cell phones, and he put a slide up on the screen that everybody took a picture of and tweeted it out. That really launched the human to human movement, sort of by accident. Seemingly small little thing that kicked off this whole conversation. That was almost 7 years ago. And one of the reasons I'm so excited to talk to Brian today is because I think what he talks about, speaking human in a technology world, sure, it's about human-driven brands. It's about human-driven companies. He comes from a marketing background. But I think those things that he talks about, those human to human things that he talks about, are just as applicable today as they were 7 years ago, maybe even more so in light of the last 12 months that we've been through, right? Maybe the fact that we're still trying to figure out, and we're going to continue figuring out, how to be more human as employees, how to be more human as bosses, especially in the future view of what a company, what your firm, whatever it is that you call what you do, where you may be remote permanently or long-term, where you may have some sort of hybrid workplace solution. I think that conversation about human to human and being human and all of the technology involved, I think is just as relevant, just as applicable today. What is this, March 25th, 2021, as it was on that day almost 7 years ago on the TED stage. So I'm excited to have this conversation with Brian here in just a little over a little less than 2 hours now, 4 p.m. Eastern today. If you're seeing this on LinkedIn right now, just come back here in 2 hours. If you are a YouTube person, go to the EntreArchitect YouTube channel. If you're a Twitch person, go to the EntreArchitect Twitch channel. If you're an architect, go to the EntreArchitect Community Facebook group. You'll get it. Any of those places, you can watch it, you can listen to it, you can comment, you can be a part of the conversation. We really do try to bring your comments and your questions into the conversation because it is a live stream. We will have Brian live, and that's the benefit of this technology, right? We can bring you a fellow human being. We can bring you into a conversation no matter where you are in the world. And Javier and Scott both know that I'm eternally fascinated by the fact that we may have someone in Anaheim, California, and someone in Australia on in fact, we often do. We may have someone from California all the way around the globe to Australia in the conversation at the same time. And that's the beauty of this technology, right? So all week we've been talking about being human in the face of technology. David, hi. Thanks for joining us from YouTube today. Great to have you. Which is a good reminder. If you're watching this right now, no matter where you are, LinkedIn, YouTube, or Twitch, say hi. Let us know that you're here live. Let us know who you are, and let us know what you do, and let us know where you are. Let's know where you are and what you do, and let's figure this conversation out. I am not an expert. I want to make that really clear. I'm not an expert on emotional intelligence. I wasn't last week. I'm not an expert on being human, communicating as a human. That's the theme for this week. I am here to facilitate a conversation. So if you've got something to say, weigh in. If you are an expert, weigh in. If you've got questions, if you've got advice, weigh in. That's what these conversations are all about. Welcome from India, David. Glad that you're joining us today. Like I said a few minutes ago, we're going to have Brian Kramer on in almost 2 hours. Brian loves talking about the idea of speaking human in a technology-driven world. And we've been having these conversations all week. Started out talking about the workplace, right? How do we bring 2019 connectedness, 2019 human connection, human collaboration into the workplace of the future? if we assume that many workplaces will remain remote or will remain in some sort of hybrid situation long term, maybe forever. That's what we talked about on Monday. On Tuesday, we talked about it in terms of we framed it around the idea of business development. Many people are really busy right now, and many are overwhelmed because of the number of inquiries that are coming in. So how do we deal with that? How do we keep that human touch while making it easier on ourselves? We can automate things, and we can have email templates, and we can do all kinds of things. Well, how do we keep that human touch? Because whether you're an architect or a doctor or an attorney or a marketer, what else? A real estate agent, any of those things, your customers, your clients, your patients, whatever you call them, they're hiring you or buying from you because you feel like the right fit, right? The example I use with architects is that your clients are making a decision to hire you because you feel like the right architect for their job. They're not trying to buy architecture from Amazon.com, right? So how do we balance that human touch and do everything that we can to make our lives easier, make those connections using the technology that's available to us? So that's what we talked about on Tuesday. Yesterday, we talked about, I called it presentation technology when I was talking to architects, but it's really more client interface technology. So if you are in the architecture or engineering or construction world, we might be talking about BIM, building information modeling, or augmented reality or virtual reality, or even AI. We may be talking about Zoom or Slack or SMS, text messaging, even just email or scheduling softwares. So the question is, how do we use those technologies to make a deeper connection with our customers, our clients, or our patients? How do we use those technologies to help those people understand us and understand our work better? How do we use those technologies to make a deeper connection, a deeper understanding between those people and the results that we're providing for them? So maybe telemedicine might be a great example of that, right? I can stay in my home. I can feel safe. It can be a very human interaction. I'm seeing my doctor. We're doing the things that we need to do, and I'm sitting in my dining room or something like that, right? It may be something as simple as a scheduling software. I love Calendly. Calendly, if you're out there, hi, want to sponsor Context and Clarity? I love Calendly because it gives me the ability to be empathetic of my clients and say, hey, listen, we need to schedule this. And I know you're busy. So, hey, here's a link. Just check out my calendar and find a day and time that works best for you. Super simple, no back and forth. It's convenient for you. Find the time, the day that works the best, and let's do this, right? It can bring a lot of humanity and make it much simpler, which in the end makes my life better and their life better. So I think that's another great example. Javier says, human to human. How are you? How are you managing your schedule in Context and Clarity 3 times a day and running your own business? Well, honestly, I'm okay. But there are a lot of balls in the air right now. It's one of the reasons I keep leaving the door open. I don't know how long I'll continue this series at 2 p.m. Eastern. We'll see how much traction it gains. We'll see where it goes. We'll see if we get any sponsors to sign on to these things, right? That makes life easier, right? It moves some chips around the table. So there's that part of it as well. But I appreciate you identifying the fact that there's a lot going on here with Context and Clarity. Today's topic, like I said, that was Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, right? The workplace, future of workplace, business development, and then presentation or interaction, right? Interface. And then today we'll talk about simply being human beings. David says, sorry, but everything going above. Okay, so David, I think that means that you don't understand the whole Context and Clarity thing that I'm talking about. So thanks for asking that. Let me explain it. Um, Context and Clarity is a show that I host every weekday afternoon at 4 p.m. Eastern. So, an hour and 45 minutes from now. It's a live stream that happens inside a private Facebook group, but one day a week on Thursdays every week. It's simulcast to that Facebook group, also to LinkedIn, also to YouTube, and to Twitch. On Thursdays, I have a co-host named Catherine, and we have a special guest every Thursday. Today, our guest is Brian Kramer, renowned marketer, author, speaker, etc. Context and Clarity is also a podcast that comes out every morning, short form, just a few minutes long, and it's also a what I call a talk inside Clubhouse, the Clubhouse app. So that's when Javier says C and C, that's Context and Clarity. And yes, I'm hosting it at 4 p.m. Eastern. I'm hosting at 9 a.m. Eastern on Clubhouse, and the podcast comes out every morning. So there's a lot going on. And then I've been doing these 2 p.m. live streams every day for 2 weeks now, or going on 2 weeks now. Tomorrow will be 2 weeks. So we'll see. We'll see if I continue on, keep this going. But I think it's important. The reason that I launched these conversations at 2 p.m. Eastern is because I think these conversations that we have about emotional intelligence and being human and culture and things like that, my normal Context and Clarity audience are architects. But these are conversations that are important for all of us, no matter what you do, whether you're in sales or marketing, or you're an attorney or a doctor, you're a real estate agent, whatever it is that you do. These topics that we talk about every day are important for all of us. David wants to know what he can get here. I study physics. I don't know, to be honest, what you can get here. I think what's really applicable about what we talk about right now is talking about how we interface with other people, right? We're interfacing right now online. You're on YouTube. I'm on Restream, broadcasting this out to 3 different channels right now. How can we be more human in the conversations that we have? I don't know how that applies necessarily to you. Maybe it's the way that you interact with your professors or fellow students. Maybe in the future, it's if you're studying physics, I don't know, what are you going to be, a researcher, a scientist of some sort? Maybe you work for NASA. I don't know. I don't know where you're headed with your career, but I think it's important for you to understand, just like for all of us, how we can be more human in our interactions. I was talking to a coaching client of mine earlier today, and we were talking about the fact that she has a new assistant, and her assistant was sending out emails that said good morning, comma, and then the message came after that. And we talked about the fact, she's sort of personalizing those emails, but there's one really big thing missing, right? She says, good morning, comma, I wanted to make you aware of, or wanted to answer your question. So it's great. I'm answering your question. I'm getting back to you. I'm following up, et cetera, but I'm not saying your name. That was a big problem in those emails. Everybody loves to be called by their name, addressed by their name, connecting on a person-to-person, name-to-name basis. So David, when I'm talking to you and reading your comment, and you're talking about specializing in quantum computing, which I don't understand at all, good for you. I'm glad that that you're studying that. I have no doubt that that's fascinating. So the question is, when you're specializing in quantum computing, and maybe one day you have to deal with a client or a boss, right? Wherever your career path takes you, you're going to have to communicate on the most human level possible, right? And that's really the point. Again, last week we talked about emotional intelligence. What does that mean in quantum computing? Well, it probably has something to do with how your research, how your study, how your work applies to someone else. Okay. I need to have empathy for my customers, for my clients, so I can really understand what the thing that I've created, the thing that I'm studying, the thing that I'm doing, how it makes someone else's life or someone else's business better. I can't sell that. I can't market that. I can't even apply that in the most effective way possible if I don't understand that person that I'm selling to or I'm trying to serve. That's how some of these things can be applied in quantum computing or physics and other places for architects, for doctors, for others, right? And I think that's really the point. The more and more technology we have at our disposal, it's great. It can automate things. It can help us communicate better. And this is one of the things that intrigues me is that we have a billion ways to communicate now. Technology makes it easier and easier for us to communicate. Think about how many ways that you can communicate. Off the top of my head, Slack, Facebook messaging, these messages back and forth during this live stream, my iPhone as a telephone, my iPhone as a platform for texting. Some are using WhatsApp. I don't, but many do. LinkedIn messaging. What else? Email. What else is available to us? We could keep going and going and going and going, right? All these different ways to communicate electronically, digitally. Is it making it harder and harder for us to communicate on a really personal human level, right? The more that we automate, the more that we have templates and things like that, bots, AIs, the more that we do those types of things, is it harder for us to communicate on a human level? Or are we using those tools to our advantage and to the advantage of the people that we're communicating with? I think that's the real question, right? The more and more technology that's available that supposedly makes it easier for us to communicate, and it really does, right? I can DM somebody on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook, whatever, at the drop of the hat, right here within arm's length. I probably have about 10 or 15 ways that I could communicate with someone immediately right now. The question is, when I'm communicating in those ways, does it come off as a human being, or does it come off as someone that's brushing them off? Does it come off as, oh man, he just, I'm really looking for someone that feels like the right fit, and he just blew me off with the template, or he just blew me off with an autoresponder. Right? I think that's one of the big questions. One of the things that Brian Kramer says, and again, Brian will be our guest here at 4 p.m. Eastern. One of the things that Brian says is that the most human companies or the most human brands have to have three things. They have to be simple. You have to be able to understand them. They have to be simple. They have to communicate in a simple way so that you understand them and what they do. They have to be empathetic, which really means that they're focused on their customers or their clients or their patients, right? They have to understand who it is that they're serving. And they have to embrace their imperfection. And that's one of the things that we talked about this morning on Clubhouse was, how do we embrace that imperfection? Not that we're trying to be imperfect, right? Not that we're trying to make mistakes, but what happens when we make those mistakes that we're inevitably going to make? I don't know what happens in quantum computing. Maybe you moved a decimal point, or you recorded some data improperly, or whatever. You didn't follow the right process, or you broke one of the processes or something like that, right? What happens when the inevitable happens? We make a mistake, we do something wrong. How do we handle that? And somebody shared this morning that someone called them out, right? They had been overwhelmed. They hadn't responded in a reasonable time frame, and somebody called them out. And the person that was telling the story said, you know what? I just responded and I said, I'm sorry. You're right. I didn't. Please forgive me. And then they went a little bit further into that conversation. I think that's what Brian Kramer is really talking about on some level when he's talking about embracing that imperfection, right? We're humans. We make mistakes. We may not return a phone call as soon as you would have liked, whatever. How do we turn around and make a really human connection? And that was part of that was sort of an epiphany moment for me this morning when it was John, a guy named John, shared that. When John shared that this morning, I thought, you know what? That email back that response to the person that was calling him out could encapsulate everything that Brian Kramer talks about: the simplicity, the empathy, and the imperfection, embracing the imperfection, all in like 3 sentences in an email. And I think that's part of the point as well, right? We can respond very, very simply, right? You're right. I didn't hold up my end of the bargain. I understand that makes you feel unwanted or not valued or something like that. I made a mistake. I should have done better. Please forgive me. This is, some of those are John's words in the story that he was telling. Here's how we could go forward together. Right? Really simple email, encapsulates everything that Brian talks about in that simple, empathetic, and embracing the imperfection. And think, that's not gonna cut it for everyone, but for the people that are your ideal customers or your ideal clients or your ideal patients or whatever your ideal is, that may go a long way, right? Again, if you're a professional of any sort, the person that hires you or buys from you or wants to work with you, whatever it's called in your world, they are looking for the right fit. They're looking for the architect, the doctor, the attorney, the accountant, whatever, that feels like the right fit. That kind of response, I think, can go an awfully long way towards making it feel like you are the right fit. Oh my gosh, this guy, he responded like this. Holy cow. Right? And the flip side of that is it's very disarming to the other person that's really worked up, maybe because they called him out in that way. It's very disarming to them, right? Takes them maybe out of that anger mode and into somewhere else. So anyway, just a story from the Clubhouse conversation this morning. Again, if you're just joining this, my name is Jeff Eccles. I'm the president and the chief strategy officer of Echo Engagement. I'm also the director of brand strategy at Entre Architect. And I host a show every weekday afternoon at 4 p.m. Eastern called Context and Clarity. Every 3 days a week, it's inside the Entre Architect community, or 4 days a week, it's inside the Entre Architect community Facebook group. 1 day a week, Thursdays, we simulcast it to that group, to LinkedIn, to YouTube, and to Twitch. We have a special guest, and I say we, Catherine McPhail is my co-host on Thursdays, and today our special guest is Brian Kramer. Brian Kramer will join us today at 4 p.m. Eastern. We will talk about speaking human in a technology-driven world. And so if you're out there, whether you're an architect, any other type of professional, creative, design professional, contractor, attorney, accountant, what else? Real estate, marketing, advertising, wherever you are, I invite you to join that conversation with us and Brian at 4 p.m. Eastern today. If you're seeing this on LinkedIn right now, just come right back here in about an hour and a half. If you're seeing this on YouTube, go over to the Entre Architect YouTube channel. If you're seeing this on Twitch, go over to the Entre Architect Twitch channel. You can watch it from any of those places. You can comment from any of those places, and you can be a part of that very human conversation with Brian Kramer today at 4 p.m. Eastern. So with that, I need to sign off because I've got to, like Javier said earlier, I've got to manage some other things right now, get ready for that conversation with Brian. I really appreciate you joining me for this. If you're live, again, I'm going to sign off here momentarily, but if you're live, say, hey, I'm here. Tell me where you are and what you do. And if you're watching this on the replay version, wherever you are, Twitch, YouTube, or LinkedIn right now, use the hashtag replay. I'm watching this. I'm in wherever it is that you are, and tell me what you do. And I appreciate all of you. Thank you for joining this conversation. Again, I'm not here to be an expert. I'm just here to facilitate a conversation. So I appreciate David being here. Bye, David. Thanks for joining us. Javier and Sorry, I'm scrolling here. And Scott as well. I thought I saw another name out there, but maybe not. But I appreciate all of you. Thanks for joining me today. I'll be back here again tomorrow, same time, 2 p.m. Eastern. We'll continue these conversations and see where they go. Until then, take care of yourself, take care of those that are close to you, and have a great day. Everybody, appreciate you. Appreciate your time, and have a great afternoon.